back to DH Deck Building, and this is 10 cards you should be putting in your Commander decks, episode 12. Starting out this week with Soul Exchange. So, 2 mana sorcery, black and a black. As an additional cost to cast this spell, exile a creature you control. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Put a +2/+2 counter on that creature if the exiled creature was a thrall. There's a lot to unpack here. You know, you're going to exile a creature. That's the first part, right? So there are other effects similar to this, but instead of sacrificing the creature, you're going to exile it. So that's not great. You know, if you are in an aristocrats or sacrifice style deck, you don't want to exile your stuff. You want to sacrifice it. But if you don't care, like if it's token, right? You don't care. It's gone anyway, right? So that really isn't that significant. So this really just becomes, and if you forget about the thrall part, right? Let's forget about that for a second. This just becomes 2 mana, return target creature from your graveyard to the battlefield. It's really good, right? There's just a lot of decks that can use that. There is lots of effects like this already. I just think 2 mana is fantastic. The not often seen +2/+2 counter is probably not that relevant. However, don't forget, if you're playing in any sort of changeling deck, that changeling is also a thrall, so that actually will play a part. Just a great recursion spell that can be really good in a deck like that. Coming in at number 2, Soul Sculptor, and this is one that I have been sort of waiting for. You know, I'm going through an alphabetical order, and this is a card that I just couldn't wait till I get to because it's just such a unique card. There's just no other card in the game that does this. So 3 mana, human, pay 2, colorless and a white, tap it. Target creature becomes an enchantment and loses all abilities until a player casts a creature spell. What? So this is playing off that ability. And again, if anyone was familiar with this set, as I very much am, there was a whole bunch of cards in this set that were enchantments, okay? The greens had the hidden, they're hidden this, hidden that. The white ones were opal, this and that, right? And the idea was they were an enchantment until something happened and then they became a creature, right? Usually it's when your opponent cast a creature spell, but sometimes it was when your opponent played an artifact. They actually can be pretty good, right? Because they're sort of protected against board wipes until something happens. This basically does that. This is turning other creatures into enchantments until a player casts a creature spell. I mean, there's just so many ways to use this card. I'm sure people's brains are already going on overload thinking of all the ways you can do this. First of all, this can be lock out someone's creature, right? This can be lock out someone's commander, something like that, right? They're about to attack you, turn it into an enchantment, right? It loses all abilities and becomes an enchantment. They're not going to be casting a creature spell during combat, so it prevents them from attacking you, right? Just turns into a maze of Ith. Shuts off their creature, probably until next turn when the next player plays a creature spell, right? This can also be, you know, if you have stuff that deals with enchantments. So I talked about the deck I used to have that just destroyed artifacts and enchantments like crazy. This can be turn your opponent's creature into an enchantment and then cast Cleansing Nova and destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Then their creature dies as well. This can be save your creature, right? This can be my commander's on the table, someone's casting a Wrath of God, I turn it into an enchantment. And then Wrath of God wipes the board and my creature is safe until someone casts a creature spell and then it turns back into a creature. There's just so many ways to use this. It's just such a funny, unique card. I love it. Coming in at number 3, Sphere of Law. 4 mana enchantment. If a red source would deal damage to you, prevent 2 of that damage. So there is one of these for every color, right? There's one for green sources and blue sources and all of that. I picked out the red one because typically red is going to be dealing damage like this. Again, this is just a very specific card that can go in very specific decks. You know, one of your buddies in your playgroup has a Purphoros deck and he always kicks your butt with it. This completely shuts it off. This is, I play Sphere of Law, my opponent's Purphoros does nothing, right? Because that 2 damage, each instant of that 2 damage is a separate instance that is going to get completely prevented by this. Even a Krenko deck, you know, my opponent's got a Krenko deck. He likes to make 1,000 Goblin tokens and run me over with them. This prevents all of that damage, assuming he has some pump effect, but even if he pumps them by 1, now they're all 2/2s. This is going to prevent all of that damage. Again, there are ones like this in every color. I just think red is the one that is the most significant, and it can just completely shut off certain decks. So it can be good if you have a guy maybe in your play group that has a deck like that. Coming in at number 4, Spelljack. 6 mana, 3 blue, blue, blue. That's a lot. It's an instant. Counter target spell. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into an opponent's graveyard, you may play it without paying its mana cost for as long as it remains exiled. This is a spell that used to get played a lot back in the day in Commander. You know, it's just one of those spells that you just sit there and you just wait for your opportunity. You wait for your buddy to cast his Rise of the Dark Realms, or you wait for him to cast his Expropriate. That big splashy spell that he plans on winning the game with, you not only counter it, but then it gets exiled and you can just cast it at your leisure, right? For as long as it remains exiled, you can cast it whenever you feel like it, whenever it's convenient for you. Just one of those gotcha spells. I guess, you know, it can save the game. It can win you the game. Again, if you're in a play group where you have an opponent that likes to cast some of those big splashy spells and just win the game, this is not only am I countering it, but now I'm going to use it against you, which can be really fun. Coming in at number 5, Sphinx of Enlightenment. And this is another one that came out in Game Night 2019. I think I've covered them all now. This is the blue one. 6 mana Sphinx, flying, you know, it's a 5/5. When Sphinx of Enlightenment enters the battlefield, target opponent draws a card and you draw 3 cards. So this can be really, really good, okay? Even if you're not playing a politics style of deck, you know, you can be like, okay, how about I let you draw a card? I'm going to cast my Sphinx of Enlightenment. I'll let you draw a card, you don't attack me at next turn. That's it. You get to draw 3 cards, which is fantastic, but that opponent drawing that single card can really be beneficial. You can really use that to your favor where, hey, you know, lay off my stuff for a turn or don't attack me next turn. You know, you can sort of make a friend, play politics with it. Politics really isn't my thing typically, but people that like to do that, this can be a great card for that. And I like to mention these cards because maybe people don't even know that this set exists. Coming in at number 6, Spirit Mirror, 4 mana enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are no reflection tokens on the battlefield, create a 2/2 white reflection creature token. Then again, it has one of those rare abilities that I think were only printed in the Tempest block where you pay 0 to destroy target reflection. Very weird, unusual card. Again, another card that I cracked open in packs back in the day and I didn't get it. I'm like, you create a token that's a creature that's a reflection and then you can destroy your own reflection token. Why would you ever do that? And I think the thinking was your opponent would put like a pacifism on it so it can't attack, and then you could destroy it, and then at the beginning of your upkeep you wouldn't have one, so you'd get another one. You know, it's similar to Ophiomancer a little bit, where if you don't have one you get one. You know, this is just such a unique card that there's a lot of interesting ways to use it. This is in my combos video where you can combo with Unnatural Selection, right? You get Unnatural Selection out. What you can do is you can just pay 1 mana to make anyone's creature into a reflection, 0 mana to destroy it because now it is a reflection. So with those 2 cards out, Spirit Mirror and Unnatural Selection, it just becomes 1 mana destroy any creature. Pretty fantastic. I also put this in my Elenda deck, okay? And the reason I put this in my Elenda deck, again, because it destroys your reflection token. So what you can do is just use this to destroy a creature every turn, right? You create that 2/2 reflection token, you destroy it with your ability, and then you get another one the next turn. And because it's getting destroyed, it puts a counter on your Elenda. So if you're playing a deck where you want creatures to be dying all the time, it can also be really good for that. Just a really unique, weird, versatile card that can do a lot of different things. Coming in at number 7, Spirit of Resistance. 3 mana enchantment. As long as you control a permanent of each color, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. I mean, I don't think I need to say much here. This just seems like an auto include in a 5-color deck, doesn't it? I said the same thing about Earnest Fellowship. That was another one that was in maybe my very first 10 cards you should be putting in your commander decks videos. You know, I don't make 5-color decks, so I don't know. I think those are both auto includes in 5-color decks. I guess if you're playing a Kenrith deck or a Golos deck, it doesn't work because they're not 5 colors. But I'm playing an Ur-Dragon deck, for example. My Ur-Dragon fulfills that, right? A permanent, it says right on the rulings here, a permanent which is multiple colors counts as each of those colors, right? So an Ur-Dragon is all 5 colors. So all you need is Spirit of Resistance and your Ur-Dragon out, and all damage that would be dealt to you is prevented. That seems pretty good. Coming in at number 8, Spoils of Evil. 3 mana instant. For each artifact or creature in target opponent's graveyard add 1 colorless and you gain 1 life. Man, this just seems like an auto include in any mill deck, right? If you have a mill deck that's black, a Phoenix deck or whatever, you know, again, milling is not something I'm an expert on, but I just think if you're playing a deck where you're milling your opponents, Anawan, I think you're probably doing a lot of that too. This can be fantastic. Each artifact and creature in target opponent's graveyard, so you get to pick the opponent, right? I mean, it's at instant speed. I don't think you're ever going to want to do that. You're probably going to want to do this on your turn so you can use the mana, but you mill your opponents for a while and, you know, you pick the guy who's got 8 creatures and 5 artifacts in his graveyard. That's 13 mana and 13 life for 3. Really good. I just think if you're playing a mill strategy, this is just an auto include. Coming in at number 9, Spreading Plague. And this is another one of those nasty ones that I probably would never put in a deck myself. I've seen it a couple times. 5 mana enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, destroy all other creatures that share a color with it. They can't be regenerated, right? So you play a black creature, for example, right? If you play a black creature, it enters the battlefield, this triggers, and all other black creatures get destroyed. It can get pretty out of control, right? I mean, there's just a lot of ways you can use this, right? So someone casts their Atraxa, all creatures that share a color with it, so all green, white, blue, and black creatures all get destroyed. I mean, it's a really crazy bananas card. A lot of people would put this in a deck that they just want to hate on other creatures. They just want to hate on creatures, period. Similar to a Tainted Aether. They'll put it in cards like that in a similar deck. Maybe a Mogus deck where they don't want you to have creatures. So it can be great in a deck like that. There's also ways that you can build around it, right? There's also ways that you can use this to your advantage. Maybe you have a commander that's indestructible that isn't going to die to this. I don't know. It's such a powerful effect, and there's just a lot of ways that you can use this. And finally, number 10, Steel Enchantment. 2 mana, blue and a blue. It's an aura, and it is enchantment. You control enchanted enchantment. A lot of enchantment talk going on there. You know, when I talked about my off-color, blue dealing with enchantments and how there wasn't really any way to do it, I think I talked about Aura Flux in that list. Someone mentioned this. Hey, what about Steel Enchantment? Yeah, it is a way to deal with it. It's temporary, though, right? You can steal someone's Rhystic Study or whatever and use it for a while until they get it back. If a Song of the Dryads is on your commander, stealing that enchantment does nothing because it doesn't remove it. It's still there. So I wouldn't, this isn't removal. It is sort of an answer, sort of, okay? It can just be great, right? This can just go in any blue deck. Again, I talk about if you're playing a mono blue deck, I like that because then you can throw a card like this in there and just use it. Just have fun. Just, hey, my opponent's got an enchantment. It's really neat. I'll steal it from them and use it for a while. It can be an answer if your opponent has a Ghostly Prison. Maybe, for example, you can steal his Ghostly Prison so that now he becomes the target instead of hiding behind his pillow fort or whatever. It can be an answer. It's definitely not removal. It can solve problems for you. It also can just be a benefit where I'm going to steal my opponent's Rhystic Study and get, some card draw off of it until they can get rid of the Steel Enchantment and get it back. It's an answer in blue. Very unique effect, obviously. I don't think there's any other card in the game that gains control of specifically an enchantment. So there it is. I always like to name the unique effects that exist in the game for people to do certain things. There's lots of those unique effects in this list. That is it for today. I have an affiliate link now with TCG Player. If you use TCG Player to buy your cards, to get any of your cards, you want the cards off of this particular list, that link is in the description below. It just helps support the channel if you click on that affiliate link. If you want to help support the channel in other ways, I have a Patreon. That link is below as well. But that is it for today. Thank you for tuning in.